let's talk about Badlands. This is the most well-known, I guess, map that I could do, and it was requested, which is why I'm doing it now instead of later. I was kind of hoping to do it later, but since it's in demand, you know, what can you do? But this map has a lot of stuff to talk about because it is very well played through. People have, it's pretty much standardized, so there is a relatively fixed thing that I could talk about compared to other maps, but that fixed thing has a lot of details, and that would take up a lot of time to talk about. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this, my format is I'm going to do this the same way I did for all the other ones. However, I'm not going to get into as much detail as I would like to. I held a Badlands class thing for like the mid-fight a long time ago for Community Fortress, and I went into detail there. So for this video, I'm essentially going to try and go over what I talked about there. I'm going to talk about the mid-fight first, and then I'm going to talk about attacking and defending. Exact same thing I did for Freight, and I believe Gravel Pit, but Gravel Pit was not a push map like this one. Push map, excuse me. I had a Dutch accent there for a second. Anyway, let's see. Alright, mid-fight, you want to come through this house right here. The biggest mistake, the first thing that always happens, is if you're a newer team and you're playing against a team that's better than you, chances are you're going to be too slow, and you really need to work on your rollout, as it's called. You really need to work on getting out of this choke point as fast as possible. And the whole process of going through the whole base thing and rocket jumping and doing all that to get out there fast is to avoid getting trapped. If you're getting trapped, you're going too slow and you need to practice on that. But if you are trapped, the most important thing is to get the hell out of the house, because in the mid-fight, this place is a death trap. This whole room right here, this is a death trap. You do not want to be in here during the mid-fight. Now then, if you're a soldier and you run into stickies because you were too slow for whatever reason, just shotgun them and move on. But if there's only like one or two or whatever, just like take one out and just run on, because it's going to detonate anyway. You're going to take damage for that, but that's what your that's what your medic's for. And ideally, you can have time to get all of them taken care of, but the most important thing is to get out of the house, and you have to make that. It's sort of a judgment call, I guess. Demo men sometimes come out onto this platform. Other times, I see them come out here. They're usually the first ones to show up if they're really good. Otherwise, they show up at about the same time as the scouts, or a little bit after the scouts. But the best demo men will get there like a good 2, maybe 3 seconds at most before the scouts will. For what I've seen anyway. Anyway, we see the demo man, if he's not coming out onto the side platform here, you can see the vocab videos for all the words. I'm just going to say this place and that place from here on out. But your scouts will go onto the point, or go under, or come into the closet, or the shit house, whatever you want to call it. But back to the demo man thing, he'll either go out there, or he'll come across and come right here and just like throw pipes along this little pathway-ish down right here to try and prevent the medic, who will typically be about here, from retreating backwards. That allows your roamer and your scouts to keep him essentially contained, the opposing medic, in this area. And when you're in the mid-fight, if you lose your medic early on, that's basically a death sentence. A death sentence for your efforts in winning the mid-fight, that is. It's possible, but if you lose your medic early on, the only way you could possibly win that is if you outgun them somehow. And if you're playing against a better team, not a chance. You're better off just retreating. But if you do want to retreat, the pipes rolling down here from your demo man, assuming that you're on the, I guess, blue team here, will prevent them from doing so, or at least force them to either take a really long way or to go through the house, which, as I said before, is a death trap. And if your soldiers are alive, they'll just pound the crap out of it. Speaking of the soldiers, when you come out of this houseway right here, even for the demo man, your first shot should always go about right here-ish. Not necessarily in this corner, but you want to like get at least splash damage off of this wall to people who are already coming out. Or if you know that you're faster than them, just put it right into the house. Ideally on the floor right here so that it splashes right into them. Because if you just put it into the wall back here, this damage doesn't really hit them as hard. So you want to like get it like right about here, or you want to get it right about here-ish. Either way, they're going to take damage. That's what you want. So when you come out, you want to at least put your first shot into this, and then reload as you take up a position. The pocket soldier I typically see come about here. The roaming soldier is typically about here, assuming that the roaming soldier wants to stay on this side of the map for at least the opening moments of the mid-fight. He usually comes along here. These are just general where you typically see them. Although obviously the mid-fight's chaotic, so you don't want to. I don't want to tell you something that's set in stone of what you should do, because the way that this game is played competitively can change over time, and it would be foolish of me to assume that you should always go here, you should always go there. I'm just saying the way that the game is played now, this is where you can typically see people do their thing. Now, sometimes when you're a roaming soldier, you come out of the doorway and you want to be aggressive. That's your call, or maybe your medic tells you to do that. You rocket jump with about this kind of angle on the wall or the floor or whatever, and you basically jump like this, and ideally you land on this train card. If you miss the train card, it's usually like right here or off to the side or something like that, but if you want to land on the train card, because if you know that the opposing team is slow, as a roaming soldier you can do that, jump onto this train card and fire rockets right into that house, because that's where they're almost always going to come from. You know what I'm saying? Because if you have a good rocket angle on this, then they're pinned down. You are basically their immediate threat. They have to take care of you. They have no choice but to take care of you. Now, if your scouts are doing their job while you're doing this as a roaming soldier, they'll be keeping the other scouts occupied, because they're going to get there before the heavy classes, and if you're going to oppress the heavy classes, you run the risk of attracting the attention of their scouts to handle you. So your scouts will need to take care of them accordingly, or at least keep them distracted somehow by tagging them and whatnot. So, yes, that's pretty much that for the roaming soldier, I guess. Otherwise, well, actually, I can talk about another thing. Sometimes the roaming soldier will decide, in his infinite wisdom, this is not a bad idea, it's a nice idea, but you want to do this sparingly if you're a roaming soldier. Instead, you can run down into this yard right here. As you're walking across here, if you want to fire rockets, you could put them right here-ish to get splash damage down here. Or as you're running across, you can try, if you can get this tight angle, you can try to like put it in about right here, because this is a perfect angle right here. It's really tight, but if you can get it, awesome. But getting it on the run is extremely difficult. It's like a needle in a haystack in terms of, the odds of you getting that while you're running across. But anyway, the idea is that you run across here and then either come up into the closet or the shit house or whatever, and basically take them on full force. And because you're a soldier, they'll probably see you trying to do that, and then the scouts will come and try to handle you. But on the off chance that they don't, by the time that you get here as a roaming soldier, the mid-fight will already be going on, and so their medic will most definitely be here. So it's a safe bet that if you can get through this without being detected, which is most likely not going to happen, but if you can have a nice, good opportunity on the medic here. Oh my, 8 minutes already. I think I'm going to do a second half for this video, because I got a lot of stuff to talk about. So, yes, I'm going to restart this and do a second part to the middle. Excuse me.